Hi, I'm Shirley Meisels, founder and creator of MHouse Inc. We are a boutique design firm here in Toronto that specializes in luxury builds and renovations, and I'm so happy you're here. I always thought that I was going to be a fashion designer. Ever since childhood, I was drawing, and fashion was my passion. And I went to school for fashion design, and I'll never forget our last assignment after 4 years in school was an interior design project, a room. They were teaching us about perspective. And my project looked entirely different from everybody else's. Honestly, it probably still kind of hold up today, and it was a long time ago. And it was modern and cool and had like this sunken plum-colored sectional, and it was awesome. Anyway, I picked it up on the last day, and I got an A++, and it was so easy and so natural for me. And I remember walking out of school and thinking, I think I took the wrong course, but whatever. It's done now, like onwards. And so I got a job in the fashion industry. I actually started off as a stylist, a wardrobe stylist. And I was asked one day by a client if I could get a sofa for the model to sit on. And I was like, yep, absolutely, no problem. I'll get a sofa. Meanwhile, I had no idea where to source and get a sofa. I was really still a kid. And so, I figured it out, and they loved it so much that I started to get booked for props and room sets. And all of a sudden, I'm designing room sets. And I started to get hired for magazines and articles, and it just sort of grew from there. And so I had a successful career as a stylist. I got married and had a baby, and it was at that time that we bought our first home, and I designed it and decorated it, and one of the magazines picked it up and shot it, and people loved it, and they started to ask me if I would do their spaces, and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try, sure. And so my very first project was for free. I did my girlfriend's house. Luckily, a couple of people saw it and they really loved it. And one thing led to another. People started to talk, and me being me, I'm the type of person who just jumps into things. I just sort of jumped into this new career. I really learned on the job. Like I said, I didn't go to school for this. And the first few projects were really just about decor and furniture and that kind of thing. So that was fun. And then one thing led to another. Next thing I know, people are asking me, can you design our kitchen? Can you do this fireplace elevation? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I was like, I never designed a kitchen in my life. What am I going to do? And I just was like a sponge. I researched, I went to showrooms, I asked the experts, I talked to contractors, I learned everything that I could, I read everything that I could, and just tried to envelop myself in this world of design. And so the first couple of projects were smaller in scale, but I learned so much from each one. And as time went on, I was able to build my knowledge base from what I'd learned before. That's not to say that it was smooth sailing, because it wasn't. I made a lot of mistakes. I felt like a full-on imposter for sure. I felt like everybody else knew more than I did, and they did in the beginning. But it was so much fun, and I totally felt like this was where I was supposed to be. And I think when you love what you do, it's easy to want to absorb and learn and face the next challenge. So that was how it started. I can think of one of my first projects where I was doing a powder room, and we thought it would be really cool to do a big vessel sink. So it was quite oversized. And I knew enough to know that countertop height, where you want your sink and your faucet, has to be at a certain height. But what I did was I placed the vessel on top of a platform. So the top of the vessel was probably at about 35 inches. But because it was so big, the counter or the platform that it was sitting on was super low, and it felt so awkward and weird because the countertop was just too low. It didn't function properly. So that was one of my early mistakes. Redo. And every time I'd make a mistake, I was like, right, gotta remember that. I wish I had somebody that could help me anticipate these kinds of things, because I didn't know. This is my first powder room. This is my first vessel sink. If I had somebody to bounce these ideas off on, and I wasn't ready for a partner, I didn't want a partner. I'd already had another career where I ran my own ship. I didn't want to work for somebody else or have a partnership. I just wanted to do my thing. But what that meant was learning on the job, and it really ultimately set me back. One of my very good friends, Michelle, was looking for a new career, and she'd always been interested in interior design. We were talking one day, and I gave her some advice and told her, maybe you should start learning some computer skills. And she did. She was amazing. She actually acted on my advice, and she got a tutor and took some online courses and really started to hone her skills. I wanted to support my friend, and I said, here's a bathroom. Why don't you do it? It maybe can be like your first paying gig. And she sent me back this bathroom, and I gotta say, it was well executed. The drawings were fine, but nothing made sense. There wasn't enough room for the toilet. She had no background where she understood that it's not just about pretty pictures, and it's not just about what you see on Pinterest or Instagram. It's about standards and what works and what doesn't work. There are rules, and you have to follow them, and you have to learn them first before you can break them. And then I also had hired a couple of junior designers that were fresh out of school. And funnily enough, not only did my girlfriend, who's the second career designer, but the juniors also had no idea. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. They had no concept of how things function. They didn't understand the differences between, say, an upholstery fabric versus a drapery fabric. They just didn't have that much of a basic knowledge of what you need to know to execute a design, any design. So I realized that all of the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years is extremely valuable. It's not only that, though. It's not just the drawings, and it's not just knowing the differences between fabrics and having that base. There's so much more to design. There's client management, there's site management, there's how to talk to people, how to build relationships, how to work with your suppliers. It's just, you have to wear so many hats. And if you make a mistake in the drawing phase, it isn't until 6 months later when things are being installed that you realize, the light's going to hit the cabinet, or, oh my gosh, the sconces are too low on the wall. I didn't realize that the mirror would be so tall. Whatever it is, you really have to anticipate and think these through and troubleshoot. And it's not always intuitive. It's not something that you would think, oh, no, I would figure that out. Well, I got news. I'm pretty smart. And I didn't. I didn't until I saw it happen. And then I was like, So between my girlfriend and these junior designers that I was hiring, and this whole concept of you don't know what you don't know. And believe me, there's a ton that you to this day, I'm still learning, because every project is unique. And every client is unique, and every combination of goods is unique. And so I like to tell people, if we built your house 5 times, replicated it over and over again, maybe by the 5th time, we'd iron out every little hiccup and it would be perfect. But really, we're building you a prototype. This is the first time you're doing it. So there's always things that come up. And I just thought, I could help people get past so many of those problems and just save you from all of this stress. So I first started dreaming about WHouse like maybe 5 years ago, and I was just too busy and didn't have time to really give it the attention that it deserved. And I'm so happy and excited that I finally taken the plunge and created this amazing mentorship program that I truly wish I had. It would have been so helpful. I would have had so much less stress, saved so much money, and really my career would have blown up so much sooner if I'd had some kind of support. I made so many mistakes. I want to share all of my experience, the good and the bad, and help you either as a homeowner who's doing it on your own, a new designer, second career designer like myself, builder or a house flipper, anybody who's interested in this arena of design. I want to share all of my hard-earned, expensive mistakes so that you don't have to pay for them and you don't have to stress out the way I did. Believe me, I had many sleepless nights and tons of panic attacks. And if I can save anybody from going through that, then I'm happy. I got to tell you, this course that I've put together is loaded with real life experiences and amazing tips and tricks. And really, I'm essentially opening up our books from my design practice, MHouse Inc., and sharing all of our measurements, all of our go-tos, even what I say to clients and how to manage them and their emotions and their reactivity and all the lumps and bumps that not if, but when they will arise, and they do. It doesn't matter who you hire. It doesn't matter what design firm. It doesn't matter what builder. It doesn't matter. There's always surprises on every project. It's how you react and how you deal with these issues that really sets you apart from the rest. This mentorship program, it's almost as if you have me in your back pocket. You can ask me anything. You can refer to our design bites or cheat sheets. You can watch the modules over and over again. It's like I'm a ghost partner. There are so many things that you wouldn't know until you know. Like, for example, I had spec'd a gorgeous slab of Calcutta for a project, and we signed off. Client was happy. Everything was great. The supplier sent it to the fabricator, and they're about ready to fabricate. And they said to me, we can't use this slab. We need to order 2 because it's cracked. And I said, it's not cracked. It was a perfect slab. And they're like, no, it's cracked. We need 2 slabs. And I said, what are you talking about? Can you send me a picture? And so they sent me a picture, and sure enough, it was Calcutta, but it was a different slab. And I was like, hold everything. They sent you the wrong slab, so we have to send it back and get the right slab. Now, the only reason why that mistake was caught was because of the cracks. If that slab didn't have cracks, the fabricator would have been like, okay, well, here's a Calcutta, but thankfully we caught it. Now, I ask them to send me a photo of every slab that is delivered to their shop so that I can make sure that the delivery is correct. And I call that the $10,000 slab save. There's so much design content available to all of us, and I have so many people thinking that they can do it on their own, and great if you can. I mean, there's so much information out there in this design space now for everyone. I can only share what I've learned and how we run our business at MHouse Inc. I'm sharing all the measurements, all the tips and tricks and everything that we use that I've figured out on my own, developed with my assistants, and we know works. These are the materials that work. These are the measurements that I know are comfortable. When I was learning, I relied heavily on the experts around me, the contractors, the trades, the showrooms, the kitchen suppliers. So for example, when I designed my first kitchen, I sat down with their team and we went through cabinet by cabinet. They explained why things were done the way they were. And I learned so much just from absorbing from the people who had done it before me. If you've stayed with me this long, I know that you're a design junkie just like me. I hope you follow along as I share tips and tricks from industry leaders and experts. I'm going to take you on job sites. I'm going to show you mistakes, and I'm going to show you what the fixes are. Stay tuned because there's a lot more to come.